Good afternoon. This is Sherry Kimes. I'm a visiting professor at the business school at National University of Singapore, and I'm joined this afternoon by Michael Tan, who's the CEO of the Singapore Productivity Center. And what Michael and I are going to be talking about is a study that we did earlier this year on delivery here in Singapore. And if you're like me, things have changed with delivery. Whereas 5 years ago, I used to just order pizza probably. Now things have really changed. And so let me just talk a little bit about the way we're going to have this set up. I'll talk for about 10 minutes or so, and then Michael's going to talk. If you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and post those on LinkedIn, and we'll get to as many as we possibly can. And so we're going to start off. I'm going to start off by talking about the growth of delivery. Then we're going to get into a little bit of background on this survey because it was done earlier this year, some of the findings. Why do people use delivery? Are there ever any problems? What about pricing? And then talking about next steps. And then I'll be turning it over to Michael. So let's talk a little bit about the growth of delivery. This is a study that was done by Statista on delivery in Singapore, and this just shows millions of users, and it's already been adjusted for COVID-19. And you can see here that by a few years from now, they're projecting 4.5 million users. So clearly, this isn't just a short-term sort of thing. So let me just talk a little bit about the study that we did here. And so again, it was done back in February. We had 500 Singaporean residents, and all of them had ordered delivery in the previous 6 months because we wanted to get some information on people who actually used delivery. And we found a lot of different things, but one thing we found that was particularly interesting was how frequently they used delivery. And when we looked at this, we found that over half of them were ordering delivery at least once a week. And this was before the circuit breaker. So it was clearly already a very popular sort of way of getting food. And so once they get onto those apps, what do they actually do with them? So let's just talk a little bit about that. I mean, basically they get on, they take a look to see what they want to have. And what they're looking to see is why they order. They're looking for convenience. This is number one, far away. And some of the other reasons, they don't want to go out. Okay, I can understand that. They don't want to cook. They've had that conversation with their spouse. And what are we eating tonight? I don't know. But the number one thing by far is convenience. So when they get onto the app now, what are the sorts of things that they're doing? Well, they go ahead, they're going on and they're looking at, and I'm just talking about the big three ones here. Obviously, there are other places. So how do they actually use these apps? And so we ask people, so when you find a restaurant you like and you go on to one of these, what do you do? What do you do next? And the results are pretty interesting. I mean, they pretty much, after they find a restaurant on the app, they order from the app. 86% of them said they ordered directly from the app, whereas 12% went to the restaurant site and 2% called the restaurant. So from a restaurant perspective, it sounds like it's a good thing to probably be listed. And then we also asked them another question. The other question being about, what if the restaurant wasn't listed, this restaurant you really wanted to order from, would they still order? Well, 42% of people said that they were unlikely to order. Only about 30% said that they were likely. So again, this is something that you might want to consider as an operator, whether you should be listed or not. People might not order from you. And then you're kind of moving along with this. I mean, we wanted to see, were there ever any problems with the order? Well, I mean, I've had some problems. I'm sure you've had some problems. And when we asked people, have you ever had any problems? Well, what we found was that about 40-some% of people had actually had a problem. 41% had a problem with an order. Okay. And now the next question is, what was wrong with those orders? And the top two things were looking at, it was a missing item and that there were incorrect orders. And then the third one, it was late. Now, the first two are very much in control of the restaurant. And so this is something where some checklists could really come in handy here. we also wanted to be looking at, okay, who do they blame it on if there was something wrong with it? And what this is kind of scary, 57% of them blame the restaurant. So what this says to a restaurant operator, make sure, especially since the number 2 things were missing item or wrong order, make sure to do that double checking, because they're going to be blaming you on this, and which is not fair, but that's just kind of the way that the customers look at this. We also wanted to look at some things other than problem orders. We also wanted to look at some things with looking at pricing. And with pricing, I mean, one of the things with pricing that we talk about is that, you know, I mean, all of you are aware, I mean, the commissions that are associated with the Deliveroo and Food Panda and Grab Foods of the world. And, you know, depending on the restaurant, you know, these can range from 20 to 30%. And so the restaurants, like any kind of retail provider, have to figure out, you know, some way to be able to kind of recover this. So we wanted to ask customers, respondents, a few questions about pricing. So let me tell you what we kind of looked at. We looked at delivery fee. That's one way a restaurant could recover a commission cost. They could charge different prices for delivery, or you could also see minimum order amounts. And we specifically looked at delivery fees and different prices for delivery. So let me tell you a little bit about what we found. So with a delivery fee, we asked a series of questions, and it was a $30 order, and we asked people several questions on what they considered to be too expensive, reasonable, and so forth. And what we found was about a $4.50 to $5 delivery fee was considered reasonable and fair. So again, quite interesting to see that. We also wanted to see, what about having different prices for delivery and takeaway? Now, I mean, sometimes restaurant operators are very hesitant about this, but let's just see what the consumers had to say. And so when we looked at this, they considered this to be fair, to have different prices. Now, what's also very interesting with this, and this ties in with some previous research that I've done, is it matters how you frame it. And what do I mean by that? And so we had 2 different scenarios. One was premium, where delivery prices were 20% higher. That's what people saw. The other was framed as a discount, where the takeaway prices were 20% lower. Notice that these are exactly the same. Well, what did people say? Well, what they said was that they preferred the discount. And so what this says to me, and again, what this says to me as an operator is that what you want to be doing with this is you want to be saying that my takeaway prices are lower than my delivery prices. It also says to me, don't be nervous about charging different prices. Okay, and so, you know, kind of moving along besides pricing. So again, framing it as a discount and your takeaway prices being lower. And so kind of, you know, the advice that I would give, number one, make it convenient for people. Why are they ordering? They want it to be very convenient. You want to make sure your restaurant is listed, if not on one of the big 3, some of the others. You want to double check your orders, double check them, triple check them, make sure everything is okay. You want to think about possibly offering delivery fees and charge less for takeaway and let your customers know about this. And so, you know, thank you very much for your time. And what I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about some of our next steps. And Michael's going to be talking about this too. One is about an operator study that we're doing right now to find out about the operator experience during the circuit breaker. And we're also going to be doing another consumer study specifically looking at pricing, because this is a huge issue for us. And again, thank you for your time. And I'm going to turn it over to Michael right now, who's going to talk a little bit about what the Productivity Center has been doing. So Michael, it's all yours.
Thank you, Prof. Klein. Welcome, everyone. For my segment, I'd like to share some slides and insights. Without further ado, for those who are not familiar with Singapore Productivity Center, we were set up in 2013 with the support of Spring Singapore then. And today, Spring Singapore is known as Enterprise Singapore after they have merged with IE Singapore. We focus a lot on the services sector for a start, and we have been working with the F&B sector, the retail sector, hotel sector, as well as the lifestyle sector. From April last year, we were also representing Singapore as the National Productivity Organization for the Asian Productivity Office. Over the last 6 years, we have done quite a number of projects and helped probably more than 1,000 enterprises in various forms. So typically we do consultancy projects as well as productivity improvement projects. We also organize study mission overseas, where we learn the best practices from overseas vendors as well as operators. And we have also done the annual benchmarking exercises as well as applied research project. And this delivery platform survey is one of such projects that we undertake to provide insights to new trends as well as to provide pointers for operators to better manage their business. Sometime during the circuit breaker, Enterprise Singapore introduced a food delivery booster package. I think what many of us has come to know is the COVID-19. In fact, it's the biggest catalyst for digitalization, better than any chief digital officer that anyone would know. And many companies then have to jump on board the bandwagon to go on food delivery platform. And in this regard, Enterprise Singapore were very quick to put together a booster package to help F&B operators to harness this area of opportunity as well as to provide them with alternate stream of revenue. Maybe just quickly, first area they did was to manage delivery costs, because some operators feel that delivery costs, commission charged by the platforms tend to be quite exorbitant and therefore eat into their margin. So as such, there were initiatives to fund part of the cost of commission costs charged by the platform, as well as to fund 20% of delivery costs through third-party logistic players. So in a way, it helps to defray some of these costs so that it enables the newcomer to come on board those platforms quicker and therefore be able to be present, as well as enabling them to reap a different stream of income. Secondly, is about optimizing sales. This is the area that ESG work with the three key delivery platforms on how to help the enterprises to better use data from those platforms to enable them to better appeal to their client base, what kind of offer they should put on such delivery platform. The third area is a more mid to longer term one. It's really about digitalization capability. In this regard, is tapping on Enterprise Singapore Enterprise Development Grant, whereby you can tap on the grant to look at virtual brand as well as online to offline strategy. So I wanted to share a lot more, but please let me play a video.
Hi everyone, we are now at Singapore Post Center. With me is Mr. Frank Lau, owner and founder of Soyami. Frank, can you tell us how has the COVID-19 pandemic affected your business?
We face a few challenges. The biggest is actually a drastic drop in our sales. During circuit breaker, no dining was allowed. So we had to quickly find a way to expand our presence and reach online. Besides having a presence on all the major delivery platforms, we launched our own island-wide delivery for all our brands. So Soyami is just one of our brands. In the group, we have 3 brands, Omomo, Pizza Maru, and also we just recently launched a new virtual brand called Gangsta Chicken, which also helped to generate a new revenue stream. We spend more time, effort, and money now on digital media, especially during this time. The other challenge we faced was access in manpower, because during COVID, during the CB, some of our outlets were closed, and those that remain open, we are only able to do takeaway and delivery. So we have to find a way to manage the cost. So we implemented some cost-cutting measures. For example, reducing working days and terminating all our washing contracts. We also assisted our Singaporean and PR employees to find part-time jobs in essential services that were in higher demand, such as supermarket and catering in the dormitories. That way, we can ensure more working days for all our employees. Honestly speaking, without the swift and impactful support from the government, we will be probably facing more devastating challenges.
I see. So besides the digital marketing and the manpower initiative that you've done, when it comes to your store format, is there any other technology that you implemented?
Okay, for us, we believe right now it is important to have O2O element in your business. That's why we launched our own island-wide delivery. At the same time, we also launched our in-store mobile ordering. Both are integrated with digital payment and with the same membership program. So if you buy something online from us, you are able to enjoy a discount on your next purchase, be it offline or online. This system also enables us to have higher productivity in terms of operational efficiency because, for example, when dining is allowed, our customers are empowered to make order on their own and also make their own payment. That sort of strategy is important moving forward because I think there is a shift in consumer behavior, especially during COVID, during the circuit breaker. Consumers are more open to order food online. So we feel that element of online presence is important moving forward.
How do you see the F&B industry evolving, particularly at the phase 2 and post phase 2 in the near future?
There are many uncertainties right now. So what is clear at the moment is that social distancing measures is going to stay for a while. Yes. That actually shrunk our seating capacity and reduces our volume of transactions, especially dine-in during peak hours. And that also results in lower sales per square feet. So secondly, like I mentioned previously, the consumer trend is behavior is shifting more towards online. And I believe a notable percentage of consumer spending on food will remain online. It won't go back to the usual, but it won't overtake dining entirely. But a huge percentage will still remain online. That's why, from our group perspective, we are in the process of right-sizing and digitalizing our business so that we can be future-ready. Moving forward, we also hope to create and establish a robust, seamless, and consistent O2O customer experience. We also will continue to develop our capacities and capabilities, both online and offline.
If you were to give a prediction and forecast, what kind of F&B business do you think will survive and emerge stronger after this pandemic?
I think it has to be a multi-channel approach. First of all, you have to maximize your resources, your capacities within the store. It has to be a hybrid of both online and offline, meaning in a physical store, you could probably be running one brand, but you could probably couple it with another virtual brand and to really expand your reach and to serve different target audience. So if you are able to do so, to maximize your space and your capacity, your resources, while reaching out to more audience, I think you are able to survive better or emerge stronger from this COVID, after the COVID.
I see. Yes. Well, thank you, Frank.
Thank you
for sharing.
Thank you so much.
So that was a very short clip of me talking to one of our F&B clients as well as my board member, Frank Lau. And he candidly shared his experiences during the circuit breaker as well as in phase 2. So that was a short clip of a much longer video. And incidentally, we did that in one take. So there wasn't a lot of script, so it was a very candid sharing. But let me just quickly summarize or recap what he has shared with us. First is definitely the competition arena has changed. There's the need to increase investment in digital media, in going digital, right? So that is a given. And then he also shared about the need to have an integrated O2O experience to provide the customer experience that will be seamless as well as frictionless, including online payment. And then he spoke about birth of a virtual brand, Gangsta Chicken. So this is a new brand that they have conceived during the circuit breaker, and it's only available online. So it's like a virtual brand of a new product. Something he did not really mention is about strategic partnership. And one thing that he did was during the circuit breaker, he partnered with Tiger Bubble Tea, right? Such that if you want to drink bubble tea, you then have to order from him. So that I thought was quite a brilliant move. The last is the in-store mobile ordering, as well as the right sizing of the store. So I think a combination of all this reflect how an F&B operator respond and adapt to the changing environment, which I think is very crucial. So I would also like to share a little bit about what are Singapore Product Center's view in terms of the years that we have been helping F&B players to respond, to adapt, and to be future ready. What are our views in this time? My sense is I've spoken to many F&B operators. My sense is with the government coming in with huge support, particularly for the GSS, 10 months of GSS, and some months are 75%, some months are 50%, and then with up to 4 months of rental rebate, many F&B players, as well as retailers, are struggling, but they are still trying as much as possible to sustain their business. And then there's also a temporary relief measures where it will expire, I think it's October 19. So the real litmus test is come November, when all the support measures are taken away. Then F&B operators will then have to look at, with your current business model, whether is it still the same as the pre-COVID one, or one that's the new normal, are you still able to be sustainable? So if you're not, then it's high time to start thinking of what else you want to do. My sense is the COVID-19 is really the change agent and the catalyst for many things that is happening. But the resultant effect really is changing consumer behavior. So if you pivot around the changing consumer behavior, then there will be many more opportunities that you can tap on to adapt your business. In our regard, you probably have to rethink, reset, so that you can rebound. So 3 areas. One area is look at cost optimization. Now that the seating capacity has reduced, how do you improve your workflow further so that you reduce your need for manpower? At the same time, you can look at menu engineering, like what Professor Kimes shared earlier. You can look at how to price certain items, as well as design your menu so that there are some for takeaway and there are some for online. It could be different. And then another area is to look at how to implement technology, for example, QR code ordering. In the past, when we do quite a number of digital ordering projects with some of our clients, there was resistance from consumer having to order from iPad and everything. But nowadays, I think with the COVID pandemic, the consumer behavior has changed tremendously. And now they welcome, in fact, they appreciate the gesture of not using the iPad to order, but more like using a QR code and using their own mobile to order, to place the order, to browse the menu, and then to pay. And then the restaurant, the operator just have to provide stuff for the serving, or even it could be self-collection. The other area really is look at digitalization, how to do O2O better, how to do digital marketing so that you can be at the top of mind recall, and therefore customers will be more inclined to order from you. Lastly, this is a QR code where we are going to conduct the second study, which is on the operator study. So I welcome F&B operator to click this and help us to collect data where we will share in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And we've got some questions coming in here. I'll take the first one, and then you're going to be back on stage. This one's from Dalukai. How can the data tell us whether the delay issue was due to the restaurant or the driver? Unfortunately, that one I don't know. But I can tell you that it was a lot smaller problem than it was for the wrong item or the missing wrong order or missing item. And Michael, you're on stage for the next two. This is from Yang. Which industry has the lowest productivity and why?
Which industry across the whole Singapore sector?
Well, I mean, are the ones you work with, maybe?
I think from what I recall, the cleaning, landscaping, security industry probably are the lowest in terms of their productivity value add. But even for F&B industry, there are many subsectors. So there are restaurants, there are cafes, there are kiosks, there are pubs and clubs, there are food courts, there are also catering. In this regard, if you look at the productivity across the various subsectors, the catering one tend to have the highest value add in terms of productivity. And that's partly because they do not have a physical space to host people. And then the other higher productivity one will be restaurants. The lower one tend to be the food courts, the pubs and clubs, and some of the cafes.
Okay, and then Amit Jain wants to know if you talk a little bit how the Productivity Center works with industries. Is it consulting services or just what is it?
Besides consulting services, we also run workshop, master classes, as well as study missions. And the publication that we do. So in terms of consulting services, a lot of time we work with F&B clients as well as retailers. We usually come with the perspective of looking at their current business model. What are the areas that we can help to improve their processes, optimize their costs, as well as looking at how to input technology or digitalization. And we work quite closely with many of our stakeholders like ESG, Enterprise Singapore, as well as Workforce Singapore for job redesign, and also SSG, Skills Future for workshop and master classes.
And then Douglas Tan has a question. I'll give it a try, and I might turn it over to you to help, Michael. Talking about now that we're have dine-in business, he's saying a lot of vendors are having a hard time coping with both dine-in business and takeaway delivery. I mean, how do you recommend that we balance? I'll start off with some of that. Is that what some restaurants do is that I mean, and you kind of heard some of this in the video. Is even think about having a separate place where you're doing your delivery and takeaway orders, whether it be a virtual kitchen or a separate line, because a lot of times the orders will come in at the same time as dine-in business. But the other part of this too is that you are facing an issue, with the social distancing, where you're not going to be able to make as much per square foot. And so you've got to have some other ways to be able to make up that revenue. And then one other thing with that too is that delivery is kind of what we were talking about earlier. It's not going to go away. It's going to become even more popular. So it's something that you really need to be prepared for. And Michael, anything you want to add to that?
Probably a quick point. To me, it's really about the business model. So many of the F&B players, the business model that is set up was based on pre-COVID variables. So in terms of your rental, manpower, and your cost of goods sold, your ingredients, right? So ingredients is probably variable, but rental is quite inflexible, and then manpower is somewhat flexible. So if your business model is based on a pre-COVID one, where you probably take on a rental space with the hope or the promise of a certain number of footfall, then you come up with the space and the number of sitting, and then you do a calculation, right? Now, during a circuit breaker, and rather post-circuit breaker, in the phase 2, your sitting capacity has reduced almost by 40–50%. And then you suddenly realize that the algorithm or the dynamics of your initial business model doesn't make sense anymore. Because you don't have the footfall, and even if you have a footfall, you have long queues that you will struggle to meet the demand because you can't seat the X number of people. And if you jump on the online, yes, there will be an alternate revenue stream, but it is also insufficient to make up for the loss. Okay, so therefore, back to my earlier point, you have to look at cost optimization. If you can't change the current model in terms of the fixed cost, you then have to look at how can I change certain costs that's not fixed, and then look at how to increase revenue higher.
And I think the comment earlier, too, about an omni-channel approach or a multi-channel approach, I mean, I think that's something that is going to become even more prevalent in the future. And you could see it's not only for restaurants, but you can see the same thing happening with retail. And so it's something that we need to be prepared for. It's a little bit different. The customers, they might not be coming into the restaurant as much, but that also has some implications for your cost structure if they're not coming in quite as much. And here's a question I don't think I could answer very well. This is with regard to upscale dining or ambiance and other dining in premiums being factored into or rather discounted from delivery prices. That's a really interesting question. And I mean, I could just give my gut feel on that one, is that there is a certain, when you look at some of the fine dining restaurants that were doing delivery, what's that price differential before people are willing to do it? During the circuit breaker, people were probably more willing, but now that the circuit breaker is over, I mean, if it's only 5% cheaper to have it delivered, probably not. But what is that? What is that sweet spot there? That one, I don't think anybody really knows the answer to that. I mean, Michael, you have any feel on that one?
I think for high-end dining, my personal view is people will still want to enjoy the ambience and to be served. And I think that there will be a stage whereby the high-end dining will still be around, but definitely you have to pay a much higher price for that kind of service. And then there will be a mass market kind of family restaurants, quick turnaround restaurants, whereas the mid-tier one will be the one probably facing the most pressure.
Well, what's interesting with that, too, is you look at some of the fine dining restaurants during the circuit breaker, and they were offering an at-home version. And a number of them I've talked to said that, it was at a significantly lower price point. It was a whole different market segment they never thought of before. And so, I mean, I think, but what's that sweet spot? I mean, I think that's kind of, but I do think there's a market for that. It's just a matter of how you go about pricing it. And so let's see, what else do we have here? How would this impact the hawker center culture? Oh, okay. Well, there's a lot of digitalization going on. But the whole thing of people hanging out at the hawker center, catching up with their friends, what impact is that going to have? And Michael, I'm going to turn that one over to you. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there are some platforms that also offer delivery for hawker fare, as well as some not-for-profit platform that offer also delivery and helping the hawkers in terms of delivery. I don't think it will impact the hawker center culture much, partly because I feel that hawker centers serve a slightly different purpose other than just providing affordable food. It's a heritage. At the same time, it is an area where it is supposed to build community bonding, because it's a place whereby people of different ethnic background, different neighborhood, and they can come together and dine in a big hawker center, for example. And that's why we are seeing an increasing number of hawker centers. So the culture will definitely be here to stay.
And it might actually be another revenue stream for hawkers is kind of how I see it. Because I think people are still going to go, but this is also sometimes you might want to have a certain dish and you just can't go out for some reason, and this might be another way to get it. And here's another question on many F&B MNCs or like fast food chains have already embraced digitalization. Do you think they're going to digitize more? I say yes, absolutely. And I think that's one of the great things about, you know, what's going on with Enterprise Singapore and Singapore Productivity Center is providing support for helping restaurants do the digitalization. I mean, restaurant operators have, not so much in Singapore, but I've seen this in other parts of the world, have been kind of hesitant about adopting digitalization for two reasons. One is cost, and then the other one is that they don't think that their customers want to use it. Well, the customers want to use it, and you're getting support to help you adopt it. Because I think if you don't do it, you're going to be in a lot of trouble in the future. And will the fast food chains keep doing it? Absolutely. And Michael, your thoughts on that one?
I think I fully echo what Sherry said. The fast food chain definitely is one of the leader in adopting digitalization. And I think we'll continue to innovate and do more. And that's something that is all for us to see.
Okay. And this one is from Jim Tan. The point-to-point food delivery model is quite inefficient despite the high delivery fee. Do you see any group purchase consolidation using tech in the future? In China, I noticed some tech platforms encouraging group purchases that help to deliver more in one trip, reducing the cost. I think that is something that we will see in the future. I think that's something that the delivery providers would love to be able to do. Whenever I've talked with them, they've talked about how in China, the food delivery providers there have done a really, really good job. Apparently, it's a very complex problem that is taken quite a while to solve. But then in China, I mean, the food delivery has been going for a lot longer than it has been here. And again, Michael, your thoughts on this one?
I think in Singapore, compared to maybe China or Indonesia, the cost of the last mile delivery is indeed very high. So when I also spoke to some F&B operator, there are essentially two schools of thoughts. One is I don't believe in delivery because I am a chef trained, and therefore I believe that food should be consumed when it's cooked within the X number of minutes, 10 minutes or so, and that will preserve the flavor that's intended to. And then there's another camp that believe that yes, I can do delivery, but I will do some food science study onto it, just like the food you have on airlines up 30,000 feet in the air is probably there's a lot of food science into what kind of vegetable you can use, what kind of sauce you can use, so that when you throw in the microwave oven, you don't come out all soggy and everything. So I think it's really up to the ingenuity of the various F&B players, how they want to tap on whatever that's available to innovate and come out with something that the consumer needs and wants. I think the key thing is really look at from a customer-centric point of view, which is something that Singapore Productivity Center over the last 2 years, we have been going out very strongly to tell our clients as well as many of our stakeholders to look at how to see things from a service design perspective, where you put a customer at the center, you have a service design blueprint, and then you have a customer journey mapping, and then you find out how do you reduce the pain and increase the gain for the customer. That will help you to pivot your business model that will make it more sustainable.
Okay, we've got 4 more questions, and then we'll call it an afternoon. This one is from a LinkedIn user asking about how can small and medium-sized local restaurants approach offering delivery? What kind of parameters do they need to consider? Whether they should build their own fleet or outsource it from the third party? This is the $1 million question. I mean, should you do it yourself, or should you get someone else to do it? If you do it yourself, there are the cost of the fleet, there's the cost of the drivers, there's also cost of insurance, and do you have the infrastructure to be able to pull it off? But if you go with one of the major platforms, there's the commission costs. And during the circuit breaker, there were some operators that went kind of in between by using some of the logistics providers like La Move and taxi companies at that time too. And so that's kind of in between. But I mean, the question is, do you want to have control over it? There's also some advantages to being on one of the big three, and I don't work for any of them, so I'm not trying to get more business for them. But sometimes, like in the hotel industry, it's a shopping platform. And do you want to be or not be? And so that's something to consider as well. And okay, I've got another one here. There's feedback that 5G food delivery model is inefficient. Is this a fair comment? Which country's online delivery model is the most efficient? I don't know anything about the 5G. Is it 5G or it's SG food delivery model? I think the Singapore food delivery model is very similar to what you're going to see in most countries, other than in China. And it is. It's not. I mean, the cost structure is similar. I think the quality level is similar. Michael, I mean, your thoughts on that real quickly?
I think, in a nutshell, I would think from customer perspective, as long as I order a food within a certain time, it gets delivered to me, I'm happy with the delivery price, it is efficient.
But it's fair. I mean, it really is. I mean, the model here seems to be very, very similar as in other countries, other than in China. Okay, two more questions. Has the Singapore Productivity Center consulted or provide consultation for home-based F&B players during the pandemic? What are the most effective solutions for them to continue to stabilize their productivity? And I think just, I mean, given time, if you could just, have you done anything to help with the home-based F&B players?
Just so be clear, home-based F&B players, there are two types really. Some are really small food manufacturers. They bake their own stuff and then they sell online. So we don't really work with those. Not from what I can recall. The other home-based F&B players will be those that open their house and then invite people to sound like a private chef. We also didn't really work with any of these concepts so far.
Okay, then what? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And one last question: do rating agencies like Hungry Go Where or Grab Food, do they play a bigger role now in the online competitive environment? And are these ratings fair based on user feedback or governed by restaurants themselves? I think, when we ask people how they choose a restaurant, because I think we did ask that in the survey, a lot of times it's based on previous experience. It might be based on what your friends have done, all these sorts of things. I mean, the reviews, I mean, those are really coming much more from consumers. I mean, there could be some restaurants who are trying to put their own in, but that gets caught really pretty quickly. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. But it's something that if people don't have any experience with it, that they might actually look at it. We did not look at that specifically in this study. And Michael, any thoughts on the ratings and the impact?
No, I fully agree with you, Sherry.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And Michael, thanks for joining us as well. And if you have any further questions, please post them on LinkedIn, and we'll be happy to answer them for you. We've also been asked, is this going to be recorded so that people who weren't able to join us can see it? Absolutely. And so please feel free to share it with your friends. But again, thank you for your attention, and for operators who are out there, if you can help us out by participating in a study we're doing on operators, both Michael and I would very much appreciate it. So thank you, and enjoy your evening.
Thank you.